Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. At the beginning of my journey, money felt like an urgent need, but I quickly understood that living only for it was like chasing a shadow. Never enough, never satisfying. Working just to earn wasn't helping me grow. It kept me trapped in a cycle without meaning. Money can buy comfort, but never significance. That's why I chose to live for the impact I could create, not for the bills in my pocket. True value comes from what you build with passion, not from what you accumulate in a rush. Many people think becoming wealthy is a matter of luck or inheritance, but the truth is, wealth begins with a vision. I turned down stable, high-paying jobs because they didn't speak to my purpose. If all you're chasing is a paycheck, your ceiling will always be the number someone else decides you're worth. But when you act with purpose, you set your own value. I used to tell myself every single day, if not now, when? If not me, who? And that was what pushed me forward when nobody else believed. Most people want immediate security, but I always believed the sweetest fruits grow from the hardest seeds to plant. I started with no technology, no capital, no connections. But I had something no one could take from me: purpose. While many chose shortcuts, I chose the path of building, patience, and consistency. Because I knew real freedom only comes to those who deliver real value to the world. It's like learning to swim in open water. It feels risky, but prepares you for any tide. Purpose is what holds you up when everything else falls apart. It transforms productivity into mission and failure into lessons. I used to say that when you're poor, if you have a dream, you never feel poor, because the dream gives you energy, direction, and clarity. Living by purpose taught me that true millionaires are those who build bridges, not just bank accounts. Money will always come, but it must be the result, not the goal. If you really want to grow, you need to change your internal compass. You must invest in self-improvement every single day, with a focus on personal development and productivity that has meaning. Purpose is the fuel of self-discipline. When you wake up for something bigger than yourself, time takes on a whole new value. You learn to manage your hours with focus, to build resilience and gratitude, and that changes everything. Your journey transforms, but what comes after that might just surprise even those who once called you a dreamer. I believe the world isn't led by those who know everything, but by those who never stop learning. When I started my journey, I didn't know how to code. I didn't speak fluent English, and I didn't understand business. But I understood one thing: in a world that changes every day, those who don't learn simply vanish. The rarest skill anyone can have is the ability to learn constantly and to learn fast. That turns anyone into someone irreplaceable. You don't need a diploma to be relevant. You need willpower. I used to tell my team, if you want to catch the rabbit, don't change the rabbit, change yourself. It always made people laugh, but it hid a deep truth. You don't need the world to change to fit you. You need to change yourself to stand out in the world. When I started learning English, I used broken radios, repeated words by myself, and took years. But it worked, because discipline is more powerful than any natural talent. Today, digital skills are like gold: video editing, programming, copywriting, automation, and guess what? Almost all of it can be learned for free. The internet is a global university. What most people lack isn't access, it's initiative. And I can assure you, those who learn what few know become valuable anywhere they go. That's how you build a bridge between purpose and financial success. That's what I call mental resilience. Don't try to be a master of everything. Be great at something the world needs. When you become the solution to a problem no one else solves, you start gaining control over your destiny. That is empowerment. That's where freedom begins. I met young people who, even without formal education, managed to change their lives by learning digital skills in just a few months. It was their growth mindset that transformed them, not their resume. Here's what I want you to understand. Acquiring rare skills is not a luxury, it's a necessity. It's what allows you to step out of the crowd and walk as the main character. It's the key to productivity with purpose, time management with meaning, and success with stability. If you master what few know how to do, the world will start looking for you. And when that happens, you'll face a choice that might be very different from the one most people are prepared to make. Most people spend their entire lives working for salaries, but I've always believed that thinking like an owner is what sets you free. When you trade time for money, there's a limit to how far you can go. But when you work for equity, when you own a piece of the dream, you shift from being an employee to being a builder. And builders don't just get paid, they create value that multiplies. That's the mindset that helped turn Alibaba from a small apartment into a global platform. Even when I had nothing, I knew I could offer effort, persistence, and creativity. That's how you earn what I call sweat equity, ownership through effort. You don't need capital to become a part of something big. What you need is commitment, self-discipline, and a desire to grow with the project. I told many of my first employees, we can't pay you much now, but if we succeed, you will own a part of that success. And they stayed. Not for the money, but for the mission. People who chase only a paycheck often miss the bigger picture. A salary pays the bills. Equity builds empires. You have to see yourself not as a task doer, but as someone who brings unique value. When you're indispensable, people want you at the table, not just working the shift. Productivity with purpose creates influence, and influence gives you the power to shape your future, not just survive the present. I met countless people who were far more skilled than I was, but they didn't think like entrepreneurs. They were waiting for permission to rise. But you don't need permission to own your path. You need courage. I told myself every day, if not now, when? If not me, who? That question made me say yes to opportunities most people ignored. And those yeses became doors to something much greater than a salary ever could provide. When you act like an owner, you start building with intention. You care more. You push harder. You grow faster. That's how real wealth is created. Not just financial, but emotional and intellectual too. Equity rewards long-term thinking. It builds resilience and a mindset of responsibility. And once you've tasted that freedom, something shifts inside you. And you start noticing a trap that too many others fall into without even realizing it. Trying to look rich before you are rich is one of the fastest ways to stay broke forever. I've seen people buy expensive watches, flashy cars, and designer clothes just to prove something to others who aren't even watching. I've always believed that living to impress others is a prison, an invisible cage built from ego. True freedom comes from not needing to show off. When I had nothing, I wasn't ashamed. I was focused. Many people today live off credit just to post photos that make them look successful. But I say, if you can afford it, invest it. If you can't, walk away. The richest people I know wear simple clothes and ask better questions. They invest in books, in courses, in experiences that make them wiser. I always reminded my team, wealth is not in how loud you are, it's in how deeply you build. If your financial silence is strong, your future will speak louder than any luxury item ever could. I've always respected those who build assets instead of collecting liabilities. Assets are things that grow with you. Businesses, knowledge, relationships. Liabilities drain you while pretending to lift you. I remember how we worked in a small apartment with no air conditioning, just dreaming of the day Alibaba would become something real. We didn't care about appearances, we cared about results. That's the kind of mindset that turns ambition into achievement. True success doesn't shout, It whispers in the confidence of those who know where they're going. I saw so many young people fall into the trap of buying things to earn approval. But I always asked, approval from whom? People who criticize don't build. People who build don't criticize. Don't trade your future for a like or a compliment. When you're focused on your mission, external validation becomes irrelevant. The most valuable thing I ever wore wasn't a watch or a suit. It was clarity. Clarity about who I was, what I was building, and why I refused to follow the crowd. I invested in ideas when others invested in trends. That decision helped me build a life of freedom. And once you realize the real cost of trying to look successful, a deeper truth starts to emerge, one that shows you success is rarely achieved alone. People often admire successful individuals as if they did it all by themselves. But let me be clear, Alibaba wasn't built by Jack Ma alone. It was built by a team of people far more talented than me in areas I didn't understand. From day one, I knew I wasn't the smartest. That realization didn't make me weak. It made me strategic. Surrounding myself with the right people turned an impossible dream into a global movement. Some of the most brilliant decisions I made were to step back and let others shine. I found developers who could code better, marketers who understood consumers better, and designers who made the experience beautiful. Leadership isn't about doing everything. It's about doing what you do best and trusting others to do the same. That's how you multiply productivity, self-discipline, and results. Empowerment is not giving orders, it's giving ownership. Think of the greatest achievements in history. None of them were accomplished alone. I often reflect on Elon Musk, not because we are the same, but because we both understood one key thing: ideas need teams. And not just any team, but the kind built on trust, shared vision, and emotional intelligence. Great teams argue, yes, but they also align. They grow through challenge, not comfort. And that's what makes them unstoppable. Trying to be an expert in everything is a trap. It will exhaust you, distract you, and dilute your potential. I always told my partners, I'm not here to know it all. I'm here to unite it all. That was my strength. When we began, we had no roadmap, no investors, no experience. But we had each other. And that made all the difference. When your mission is bigger than your ego, collaboration becomes your secret weapon. Building a team with the right people gives you something individual effort never can: resilience. When one person is tired, the others keep going. When you fall, someone helps you up. That shared strength allows you to face challenges you'd never survive alone. And once you understand the power of building together, you start to see new tools that can scale your vision beyond anything you imagined. When I first discovered the internet, most people around me thought it was a joke. We had no computers, no coding skills, and no money. But I saw something different. I saw a bridge between ordinary people and extraordinary possibilities. Technology wasn't something to fear, it was something to harness. That's why I built Alibaba, not because I was a tech expert, but because I believed technology could empower the little guy. I've said this many times, the future is now. You don't need to be in Silicon Valley to make a difference. If you have a smartphone, you already have a global business tool in your pocket. The internet has leveled the playing field. The only difference now is how you use it. And if you combine knowledge with the right tools, you don't just increase productivity, you unlock freedom. Some fear technology because they don't understand it. But I say, don't fear it. Get curious. Learn to use platforms that help you grow. Automate what drains your time. Create content that spreads your ideas. Whether you're building an online store, writing digital content, or editing videos, technology gives you leverage. You no longer need permission to start. You only need self-belief and action. I've watched older generations resist the internet while the younger ones built empires from their bedrooms. That's the beauty of tech. It doesn't care about your background, age, or status. It rewards courage, creativity, and a willingness to fail fast and learn faster. That's why I tell young people, use this era. The tools you have today are more powerful than anything we had when we started Alibaba. Once you start seeing technology as an ally, it becomes a multiplier of everything. Your ideas, your goals, your growth. It turns self-discipline into efficiency and time management into legacy building. Don't fight the future, ride with it. Because just ahead, there's something else blocking your path. It's not a lack of tools, it's the noise that keeps pulling you in all directions. In the beginning, everyone had an opinion about what I should do. Friends told me to get a stable job. Family worried I was dreaming too big. Critics laughed at the idea of selling products online. If I had listened to all those voices, there would be no Alibaba today. The truth is, too many opinions can paralyze your progress. What you need is clarity, not consensus. Every time you ask everyone for advice, you dilute your own voice. And when your vision becomes blurry, your actions become weak. I always asked myself, what do I want? Not what my neighbor wants, not what society expects, just me. Because that's where self-awareness begins. When you know your destination, distractions lose their power. It's not about being stubborn, it's about being aligned with your core purpose. Not all advice is useful. Many speak without having walked the path. I used to say, don't take travel advice from someone who's never left home. That's why I only listened to mentors who had already achieved what I aspired to. They didn't speak in noise, they spoke in direction. Fewer voices, more intention. That's how you find mental resilience and build a strong success mindset. You don't need a crowd, you need a compass. And that compass is built from experience, reflection, and focus. When I started Alibaba, I didn't let opinions drown our mission. I let results speak louder. Everyone has something to say. But those who produce results are often too busy building to argue. Choose your mentors wisely. Let their footsteps guide your own. The world is loud. Social media is even louder. But your future depends on quiet moments of decision, on choosing the path that may not be popular but feels right. It's not easy. But the less distracted you are by noise, the more empowered you become. And once you learn to say no to opinions, you uncover a new strength, one that doesn't shout, but silently opens doors that ego often slams shut. One of the greatest lessons I learned on the journey to success is that the moment you think you know everything, you stop growing. Ego is seductive. It whispers that you're smarter, better, untouchable. But I've seen it destroy careers faster than failure ever could. Humility, on the other hand, is what kept me learning, even when people called me a billionaire. Because growth is a journey that never ends. I often remind people that I failed many times, at school, in job applications, even in business. But those failures didn't break me. They shaped me. Why? Because I approached them with the mindset of a student, not a victim. It's easier to blame others, harder to reflect inward, but only through reflection comes real transformation. Success habits are born not in arrogance, but in awareness. Humility allows you to hear things ego refuses to accept. It lets you take feedback, make adjustments, and rise stronger. I remember being the only one rejected from KFC when 24 others got hired. I was also rejected 10 times by Harvard. But I didn't complain. I improved. That's what self-improvement really is. It's not flashy, it's quiet, consistent, and often uncomfortable. But it opens doors you never saw coming. There's a Chinese saying I love, empty your cup so it can be filled. Ego fills your cup with noise. Humility empties it so you can drink from the wisdom of others. In the culture we created at Alibaba, we celebrated mistakes, not because we loved failure, but because we respected learning. And learning only happens when you're humble enough to admit you don't know it all. If you want to reach the next level, you must let go of the idea that you've arrived. The more you grow, the more you realize how much more there is to learn. Humility is not weakness. It's power disguised as openness. It builds emotional intelligence, strengthens relationships, and sharpens vision. But most of all, it prepares you for the next challenge, where excuses won't help and blame becomes a barrier. There was a Chinese proverb I used to repeat to my team: "He who blames others is far from the solution." I've seen so many people stuck in the same place year after year because they were too busy blaming the government, the economy, or their parents. I'm not saying life is fair. It's not. But if you keep pointing fingers, you give away your power. Real transformation starts the moment you take full responsibility. I've been rejected dozens of times. I was the only one not hired by KFC. I failed the university entrance exam twice. I could have said, "It's their fault." But I didn't. I looked in the mirror instead, not because I liked what I saw, but because that's where change begins. When you stop blaming others, you gain control over your own story. And once you gain control, you unlock something even more valuable than success: freedom. It's tempting to wait for someone to save you. But the truth is, no one is coming. The hero you're waiting for is already inside you. You just haven't heard its voice over the noise of complaints. Self-awareness is your greatest weapon in a world addicted to excuses. Personal growth doesn't start in a seminar. It starts in silence, when you finally say, "It's on me." Blame is like carrying extra weight on a mountain climb. It slows you down, exhausts your energy, and blinds you to the summit. I always say, drop the blame, and you rise faster. It's not about ignoring injustice. It's about not letting it define your next step. Productivity grows when you focus on what you can control, and that's your mindset, your actions, your reactions. I've seen people change their entire lives just by changing their internal narrative. Not overnight, not perfectly, but intentionally. Blaming makes you a spectator. Responsibility makes you a creator. And once you take that path, you begin to realize something else. Sometimes, what feels safe, what looks like peace, is actually holding you back in ways you never imagined. I call it the invisible prison, the comfort zone. It feels warm, familiar, even safe, but it slowly tightens around you, numbing your ambition and stealing your drive. I've met countless people who told me they were comfortable, but behind that word was fear. Fear of taking risks, of starting again, of failing. What they didn't realize was that comfort over time becomes a cage made of routines that no longer serve you. When I left my teaching job, people thought I was crazy. I had stability, a paycheck, respect, but I had no fire left inside. I wanted to build something bigger than a classroom. So I stepped into discomfort. I faced rejection, confusion, doubt. But that discomfort became my teacher. It sharpened my focus, tested my resilience, and revealed the parts of me that had been asleep. Discomfort isn't danger, it's a sign of evolution. Growth never happens in comfort. You don't build muscles lifting feathers. You don't build a business avoiding challenges. The comfort zone gives you rest, but it doesn't give you wings. I used to tell my team, if it's too easy, we're probably not learning. The most successful moments in my life came after the hardest ones. That's where self-discipline grows strong and willpower becomes your compass. We often confuse peace with passivity. Just because you're not moving doesn't mean everything's fine. The world moves forward. If you stand still, you fall behind. I tell young people, if everything in your life feels easy right now, maybe it's time to ask yourself, have you stopped expanding? The most exciting opportunities rarely come wrapped in comfort. They usually come disguised as uncertainty. You don't need to abandon comfort forever. But you do need to challenge it often. Push your limits. Say yes to what scares you. Take the uncomfortable meeting, the difficult course, the bold idea, because that's where life begins, just beyond your zone of safety. And as you push past that invisible wall, you'll discover something else. The more you try to please everyone, the more you lose yourself. If I had tried to please everyone when I started Alibaba, it would have failed on day one. Some people thought the idea was too ambitious. Others thought it was foolish. A few even laughed to my face. But I didn't build this company to make people comfortable. I built it to make change. The truth is, if you try to make everyone happy, you'll end up disappointing yourself. I always believe that conviction matters more than consensus. You don't need everyone to believe in your vision, just a few who will fight with you to make it real. When people questioned my ideas, I didn't argue, I built. And as we built, those same critics slowly turned into admirers. Not because we proved them wrong, but because we stayed true. Self-discipline means doing the right thing even when others don't understand. It's easy to fall into the trap of approval. We want likes, compliments, support. But growth isn't always liked. Some people will resist your change because it reminds them of what they're not doing. That's okay. Your life is not a democracy, it's a direction. Productivity and personal development don't come from people-pleasing. They come from knowing your why and honoring it daily. Kindness is important, yes, but don't mistake kindness for weakness. I've learned to listen carefully, but to act decisively. Your mission needs clarity, not constant applause. Sometimes your silence will be misunderstood. Sometimes your ambition will be mocked. Let it be. Keep walking. Because those who dare to lead rarely fit in from the start. The moment you stop needing approval is the moment you gain power. Not over others, but over your own path. It's liberating, it's scary, and it's worth it. Because when you stop trying to please the world, you finally hear your own voice clearly. And in that quiet certainty, you'll find the courage to fail, fall, and most importantly, begin again. I was rejected more times than I can count. 30 job applications, 30 rejections. Even at KFC, I was the only one not hired out of 24 candidates. Harvard turned me down 10 times. To many, that would have been enough to quit. But I saw every no not as an end, but as a test. Failure to me has always been a disguised teacher. The more I failed, the clearer my next step became. The path to success is never a straight line. It twists, turns, and sometimes collapses beneath you. But the secret is this: don't stop walking. I treated each setback as feedback. What didn't work showed me what might. That's how Alibaba was built. Not on perfection, but on persistence. Personal growth isn't measured by how many times you avoid failure, but by how many times you rise after it. Failing doesn't mean you're broken. It means you're learning at full speed. I always encourage my team to experiment, even if it meant messing up. Because the cost of failure is temporary, but the cost of inaction is permanent. Resilience, creativity, and confidence don't come from comfort. They're earned in the chaos. That's why I never feared falling. I feared standing still. We live in a world obsessed with winning, but real winners know that success comes from being willing to look foolish first. You must be brave enough to try, humble enough to admit mistakes, and smart enough to adjust. I always said, when you're poor, if you have a dream, you never feel poor. Because that dream keeps you moving, no matter how many times you fall. Start small, fail fast, learn quicker, then start again. That's how innovation happens. That's how momentum builds. The future belongs to the doers, not the doubters. So fall, then rise. Miss, then aim better. That next version of you, the wiser, sharper, bolder one, is waiting just beyond the failure you're too afraid to face. And when you meet that version, you'll realize that everything big once started as something small. When we started Alibaba, all we had was an old table, a cheap computer, and a dial-up connection that barely worked. But we also had something far more powerful, a big vision. We didn't wait for perfect conditions. We didn't wait for investors. We didn't wait for permission. We just started with what we had, where we were. Because dreaming big doesn't require resources, it requires courage. Vision without action is just a fantasy, but action without vision is waste. What made our journey real was that we combined both. Every little task we did, every line of code, every product page was part of a bigger mission: to help small businesses compete globally. That mindset gave meaning to our daily work and made even the small steps feel significant. This is how self-discipline transforms ordinary tasks into powerful movements. People often underestimate humble beginnings, but every tree starts as an invisible seed under the ground. The same goes for success. I've met many people waiting for a big break, when what they really need is a small start. You don't build confidence by waiting. You build it by moving. Start with what you know. Learn along the way. And as you grow, so does your capacity to dream even bigger. When I reflect on those early days, I don't feel embarrassed. I feel proud. We didn't look successful. We weren't flashy, but we were focused. And that focus, powered by gratitude and continuous learning, is what carried us through the chaos. Small beginnings teach you humility, resourcefulness, and resilience. They're not a limitation. They're your greatest training ground. So don't wait for the perfect plan. Don't wait until you feel ready. Start. Build something tiny with enormous intention. Because once you gain momentum, you'll start to notice something. True wealth has nothing to do with showing off, and everything to do with having the power to choose. People think being rich means owning yachts, wearing designer suits, or flying private. But I learned that real wealth has nothing to do with those things. True wealth is freedom. The freedom to choose where you are, who you're with, and how you spend your time. For me, being rich is waking up and deciding what matters today, not what I'm forced to do for survival. That's the power no paycheck can ever buy. When we built Alibaba, it wasn't just about building a business. It was about building a life where we had options, freedom to serve customers, to empower employees, to shape our future. I told my team, let's work like crazy now, so one day we can live like few others ever will. That mindset changed everything. Sacrifice became meaningful. Delayed gratification became a strategy. This freedom wasn't given, it was earned. Through years of relentless work, constant failure, and brutal self-discipline. I knew that if we did the hard things today, we'd earn the right to choose tomorrow. That's how I define personal growth. Not just achieving goals, but designing a life where those goals serve your happiness. Gratitude and vision must go hand in hand. Many people trade their time for money and never realize they're renting their lives. Real empowerment comes when you stop renting and start owning. Own your mindset. Own your skills. Own your journey. That's how you build equity, not just in companies, but in life. That's why I always tell young people, use your youth to buy freedom with effort, not stuff. Because when you finally have the freedom to say no, to walk away, to create, to rest, to choose, you'll understand something deeper. Wealth is not in what you keep. It's in what you can afford to give up. And in that silence, far from the noise of opinions and the prison of appearances, a new voice will rise inside you. One that's ready to lead, to inspire, and to live with purpose.
Jack Ma captivated the audience with more than just wisdom. He delivered truth. In a world chasing overnight success and flashy wealth, Jack Ma brought something rare: clarity. In this unforgettable presentation, he dismantled the illusions of success built on salary, appearances, and comfort. Instead, he offered a path grounded in purpose, self-discipline, and personal growth. He spoke about how money should never be the goal, just a byproduct of the value you bring to the world. He shared his own story of turning down easy offers because he knew the real rewards were in the long road. With honesty in heart, Jack Ma reminded us that productivity means nothing without meaning. That chasing a paycheck without vision will keep you stuck forever. One of the most powerful ideas? Learning rare skills to become indispensable. Jack Ma didn't sugarcoat it. If you want freedom, you need to make yourself valuable. He revealed how anyone, regardless of background, can use the power of learning and technology to gain leverage in life and business. He warned us about the invisible trap of comfort, the prison of living to impress others, and the exhausting noise of too many opinions. In a time where distractions are everywhere, he gave us a compass, purpose that fuels self-discipline, purpose that builds resilience, purpose that transforms ordinary actions into legacy. Jack Ma also reminded us of the strength found in humility, in starting small, and in choosing to fail forward. His stories of rejection, his unapologetic belief in self-awareness, and his deep understanding of emotional intelligence made this more than a motivational talk. It became a roadmap for transformation. Those who listened carefully left with more than inspiration. They left with a mission. Because Jack Ma didn't just tell us how to become rich. He showed us how to become free. And in doing so, he redefined what success really means. Now that you've heard all this, what are you going to do with it? Will you let these lessons fade away with the next distraction? Or will you take action and make this the turning point in your life? The power is in your hands. Because success doesn't come from information, it comes from application. It comes from turning purpose into daily action. If you truly want freedom, it begins with responsibility. If you want abundance, it starts with self-discipline. And if you want a life of meaning, it requires the courage to stop blaming, stop pleasing everyone, and start building. Jack Ma made it clear, no one else is going to live your life. The future belongs to those who take control of it now. So, what resonated most with you? Which habit are you ready to let go of today? Drop in the comments and share your insight. You might inspire someone else on the same path. Revisit this video whenever you need to reconnect with your focus and fire. If you haven't subscribed yet, this is the moment. Because let's be honest, YouTube might never show this channel to you again. So hit that button now, turn on notifications, and stay connected to content that will challenge, inspire, and elevate you. And if you're serious about growing, don't stop here. Watch the next video, Jack Ma's advice. Start over as many times as necessary. It will give you the practical steps to start applying these insights in your life and unlock the freedom you deserve.